Hello, everyone. So, there's been a super popular tag going around the tarot community called hashtag only 10 decks. And by now, everyone has done a VR to this, but I just haven't gotten around to it because I've kept changing the last deck in the list. But I think I've made up my mind now, so here we are filming this video. And this tag was started by the one and only Katey Flowers. And the idea is that if we could only keep 10 decks out of our entire collection, which ones would they be and why? So I surprised myself and ended up with only 3 tarot decks, and the rest are oracle decks. And I feel like that is a bit of a plot twist there, because when I started reading cards and getting into cartomancy and all that, I was a tarot girl through and through. But I think that why I picked only 3 tarot decks for this list is because I think tarot is more versatile than oracle. Tarot can be a single tarot deck can be used for multiple purposes, whereas oracles are often so specifically themed that they are used mainly for that one specific purpose. And that's not always the case, of course, but sometimes it is. So, let's get to it. I'll start with the 3 tarot decks that I picked. And the first one in this little pouch is the Animal Wise Tarot by Ted Andrews. And this one is my soul deck. No questions asked. It's not the prettiest deck that there is. It's not the fanciest deck. The artwork is well, quite simple, and the cardstock is very thin. But anyway, I just have a very strong connection to this deck. And if I needed to pick only one deck out of my whole collection, it would be this one. I just love working with animal energies. And the guidebook of this deck is amazing, of course, as you could expect for Ted Andrews. And somehow this deck just piques my intuition whenever I read with this. So there's my number 1, and probably the most important pick out of my list. Let me get this out of the way. And then the next deck that I picked, number 2, is the Hanson Roberts. Look at this cute little unicorn thingy. It's the Hanson Roberts Tarot. Oops. Now, I have never really connected with the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. So this kind of takes the place of a traditional RWS deck. The Pixies art is just something that I just never connected with. But this artwork, instead, it's so beautiful. I adore this deck, really. It's so beautiful. Some say that this is a bit juvenile, but I don't feel like that. It's sweet, or at least the artwork is very sweet, but it tells you what you need to hear. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. at least not too much. And as you can see, I have cut the borders of my copy, and I also have etched this in this kind of glittering blue to match the bags. So that's my second pick. The third one that I picked is the Tarot Grand Lux by Giro Marchetti. And this deck surprised me. I bought it on a whim last year, and I fell in love with it. I love how most of the cards have these kind of close-up images of the people in it, and that's just really something that speaks to me. I love seeing people's expressions up close, and the artwork is wonderful in other ways too. So yeah, this was my surprise deck. I wasn't expecting this one to become a favorite for me, but it did. So this kind of balances out the Hansel Roberts that I just showed, because that one's really light and colorful and bright, and and this one is more dark in color and more serious in feeling, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, those three were my tarot decks that I would keep if I had to get rid of some of my decks. So let's start looking through the oracle decks next. And in this little vintage tin box, I have my Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. And this I would absolutely keep in my collection if I needed to get rid of some of the decks that I have. And I have very strong feelings about how fairies and goblins and all those creatures should look. I don't like the kind of art where they are too human-like. So Brian Froud really hits all the right marks for me. I really love how he depicts fairies and gnomes and these creatures. This is a really how would I say, rather heavy deck. So I don't work with this very often, but when I do, it gives amazing readings. And even if I don't use it very often, I still wouldn't want to have a collection where this isn't one. So there's that. And again, the guidebook that comes with the deck is amazing. Next one on the list is this one, Spirit Animal Wisdom deck by Katie Jane Wright. And again, like I said, I love working with animal energies, and this deck, it has a rabbit card and a hare card. Like, that just was a deal breaker for me. I had to get this deck. Oh, not a deal breaker, a deal maker. Is that the right phrase to say? Anyway, it has 50 cards, so it has a great variety of animals in it, and I love the soft watercolor artwork, and the messages are, I think they are really deep. They go deep. I did have to mark the numbers on the cards and on the guidebook, because the guidebook wasn't using a alphabetical system, so I had a bit of trouble whenever I wanted to, whenever I drew a card and wanted to read the message from the guidebook, I had to try to find it in there. So I made it easier for myself when I numbered the cards, but that's not an issue for me. I don't mind that at all. So yeah, that is the spirit animal wisdom deck. Next one is also a animal deck. Surprise, surprise. And it's the Animal Whispers Empowerment cards by Madeleine Walker. And this one has, I think, a bit gentler energy than the other two animal decks that I have shown here. But still, the messages that it gives are really meaningful, even if the overall energy is a bit gentler. And this deck really has been a favorite deck this year. I bought it in the spring, and I have used this so much for day pulls. I try to use all my decks equally, but more often than not, I have been drawn to use this deck, and I haven't been able to resist it. So this has really been in use this year. So here, that's the Animal Whispers Empowerment cards. And again, the guidebook that it comes with is amazing. I really like the way it's been written. Next one then is not an animal deck anymore. It's the Goddess Dream Oracle by Wendy and Drew. And this has such a magical and very earthy energy. And it has all the rabbits. So of course I love this deck. So many rabbits. I love them. I love the artwork. No matter the rabbits. But the rabbits are a great plus. So yeah. And this deck really, or the scenery in it and the landscapes in the cards really remind me of England, of Southwest, where I used to live. I lived there for a few years. So whenever I feel longing for that part of the globe, this deck comes out. So yeah, that's the Goddess Dream Oracle. And speaking of goddesses, the next one is the Journey to the Goddess Realm Oracle deck by Lisa Porter. And of course, I needed to have a goddess deck among the 10 decks that I would keep. And this deck is amazing. It has my two matron goddesses, Baba Yaga and Kali. And it really has a good variety of goddesses in it. It has some well-known goddesses like Lilith here. I really love this Lilith card. But then it has some less known goddesses in here, as well as the Bobo card. I didn't know of Bobo. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, but I didn't know of this goddess before I pulled this card one time. And then I went to to read some more about her, and she turned out to be a really, really delightful goddess that I really like working with whenever I pull this card. And where the Goddess Dream Oracle had really earthy energy, this one feels very fiery to me. It might be because of the artwork, the bright colors. But yeah, this is a very, very lovely goddess deck that I absolutely love working with. Then, second to last is the Self-Care Cards by Cheryl Richardson. That's her name really gives me some problems in pronouncing it. But anyway, this is a really lovely deck again, and the messages of this deck really remind me of some of the things that I try to learn in therapy. I've been in therapy for the past year, and this deck really reminds me to believe in my own self-worth. It has really amazing and inspiring messages in it. And the artwork, again, is very beautiful as well. So yeah, I think this is a must deck for me in terms of my growth. So yeah, that's that one. And last but not least comes the rune vision cards. Now, this one was the one that I wasn't really sure of if I would pick this one or some other deck. I went through my collection quite a few times when I was trying to decide my 10 decks, but I then ended up with this one because I've been wanting to learn the runes, and I think this deck really helps me with that. Also, there's the fact that this artwork really reminds me of old Norwegian fantasy book series, The Legend of the Ice People, for those who have read them, that I was absolutely obsessed with when I was a teenager. The covers of the books were kind of the same art style as these are. So there's that nostalgic factor as well. So those were my only 10 decks that I picked. Now, thank you all for watching, whoever watched this video, and if this video raised any thoughts, please do share them in the comments. I really love talking about tarot and oracle and any spiritual stuff. So please, if you feel so inclined, leave a comment. And thank you again for watching. I really hope you have a nice day or evening or whenever you are watching this video. So, bye bye now.